Hi, my name is Sarah and this is my second reflection for NUR118, and this one's based on the professional regulation case study followed by a nurse called Sam through a serious medication error, and I'll be using the 5 R's reflective framework, which stands for reporting, responding, relating, reasoning, and reconstructing. Okay, so let's begin with reporting. So starting off, Sam was a registered nurse working a night shift on a busy acute vascular ward. During a medication round, Sam set up a continuous IV infusion for a patient with aortic dissection, which is a life-threatening tear in the main artery from the heart. And the prescription was misread, and the infusion was set at 20 milliliters per hour instead of 2 milliliters per hour. That's like 10 times the correct dose. And over the following days, the cardiology team flagged that the rate needed to come down, but it was never fully corrected. And another nurse named Annie eventually identified the error, and a doctor called Gail was called straight away, and then she stopped the medication completely at once. And that afternoon, the patient died from a rupture of the aorta caused by a sudden spike in the blood pressure. What I already knew before reading this case was that the medication safety is one of the most important things in nursing. Things like checking prescriptions carefully, making sure that you have the right patient, right dose, right time. Those are the basics that are taught to us from day one. What I did not yet understand was how professional accountability actually works when something goes seriously wrong in a clinical setting. Responding. When I first read part 1 and part 2 before I had the full picture, I want to be completely honest, I felt shock, and I was also judging Sam a lot. My immediate assumption was that Sam had been careless and he was solely responsible for everything. But underneath that reaction, I also felt something else. Honestly, it was closer to dread, because about a night shift, a busy ward, it was one nurse covering 12 patients, and a prescription that was easy to misread. I thought about myself as a future nurse, and when I go on clinical placements, how easily that could just happen to me. Then when I read the full investigation findings, everything shifted. The prescription itself was incorrectly written. What doctors re-prescribed with an incorrect dosage. The cardiology team's instructions about reducing the medications were not followed as well. And when the Dr. Gale, stopped it at once, the blood pressure spiked, and that led to the death of the patient. And throughout the whole process, Sam completed an incident report, and at the end, Sam was responsible for everything. And my initial judgment had been completely wrong. This case connects directly to what I've been learning in NUR118 about professional regulation and the NMBA standards. I had learned that nursing accountability is not just about individuals' actions, but about systems, communication, and teamwork. I had not really understood what that meant until I saw it play out here. What also struck me was the investigation process itself. Sam was questioned multiple times, and no one else was involved, or formally questioned about it. And the NMBA Code of Conduct for Nurses requires open and transparent process when things go wrong. The way this whole investigation was conducted felt short of that, and I believe it contributed directly to Sam leaving the profession. Reasoning. When I reflect on why I judged Sam so quick, I have to ask where that came from. I think I was carrying an assumption that I had never examined, that in nursing, when something goes wrong, there's always one individual, one person who's responsible for it. And that assumption was just wrong. It is dangerous. And it stops us from looking at the systems, the communication failures, and the workload pressures that created the conditions for the error in the first place. On a ward where one nurse was covering 12 patients overnight, the conditions for mistake already existed before Sam even picked up that prescription. The NMBA Code of Conduct makes clear that safe practice depends on systems as much as individuals, and that accountability sits across the whole healthcare team. Understanding that has genuinely shifted how I think about professional regulation. It is not simply about disciplining one person. It's about identifying every point of failure so that the same thing cannot happen again. As a nursing student, I also want to name why this matters for my developing professional identity. How I respond when things go wrong, whether I look for someone to blame or whether I try to understand the full picture or be honest, and everything that's going to shape the kind of nurse or the kind of colleague I'm going to become. Safe, ethical nursing requires me to think critically and approach every situation knowing my first reaction might be wrong. That is what NMBA Standard 1 asks for nurses. So, reconstructing. Going forward as a nursing student, I am committing to 3 things. First, I will always document honestly, including when I make a mistake or when I notice something that concerns me. I'll always be honest with my reports. And I want to be the kind of nurse who's honest even when it's scary, because nurses report things openly. Like, it makes the whole system safer for everyone when you report things correctly. And secondly, when I see something that doesn't look right, clinically, I will ask questions rather than assume that the person with more experience might be correct. As a student, asking careful questions is within my scope. And the NMBA Standard 6 requires action when patient safety is at risk, and building that habit starts now. Third, I will resist judging individuals when things go wrong, and I'll try to understand the full context. And this is just not about being fair to individuals like Sam. When people are afraid of being blamed, they stop reporting mistakes, and that's what dangerous for patients. Honestly, reporting is what keeps people safe. And this case has genuinely changed how I think about accountability and the kind of nurse I want to be. Thanks for watching.